Carolina people's been at 4-star hotels and 4-star restaurants. Today, we've got a 4-star general. Meet him, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Santee Cooper location in Garden City. We're focused on the Myrtle Beach Air Base Redevelopment Authority, and we're visiting with one of the founding board members, General Bob Reed. Good morning, General Reed.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming in early on a Friday morning.
My pleasure.
A lot going on, and of course the excitement to have your chairman of the board, Harold Stowe, with us last Thursday.
Yes.
Up at, actually, we were at the Holiday Inn West on the Waterway, and he had come out, of course, not a far trip for him from coastal Carolina in his current position there as the acting chair of that of the Wall College.
He's an outstanding gentleman, and he's really been a superb individual to work for in the Redevelopment Authority.
And the two of y'all and one other have been...
George Graham. He's an attorney from Conway.
Okay.
We have been on it since the beginning.
That's amazing. Were you also appointed by either the state or the county delegation, or were you a city?
I was appointed by the city. Initially, Bob Hirsch was a member of the city council, and he remembered me from my days here as wing commander. I got to know him when he was mayor of Myrtle Beach. So he nominated me to the city council as a board member of the Redevelopment Authority. And the city approved it, and I've served ever since.
And you said you were the wing commander? You mean of the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base?
Yes.
Wow, that's like the big dad. I mean, that's the...
That's the top position, yes.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. With the Air Force Base, such a magnificent facility there, and to think about it. So you had an intimate relationship. What years were you the wing commander? I
came in &75 and left in 1979.
Is that right?
About 4 years.
How long are those normal stints for a wing commander, or even? And of course, a lot of folks will think about it as the base commander, but actually the top position there was the wing commander.
Yes. Normally, in those days, they ran between 2 and 3 years. Nowadays, the Air Force generally limits them to about 2 years.
Is that right? Huh. Anything in particular that...
Well, they're trying to develop as much leadership as possible, and so a wing commander position is a key leadership position for training an officer for higher rank, and so they normally limit those to about 2 years now. And
were you a general then, or were you a colonel?
No, I was a colonel, but I was promoted to general while I was here.
Is that right? So that's exactly, as you say, a leadership position to open the door for a general slot.
And if you look back at the history of the base, the number of wing commanders that have made general, I think there are about 6 or 7 over the course of the years that the base existed that have moved on to become generals.
Is that right?
2 of us were 4-star generals, myself and Mike Carnes. There have been 3 that were 3-star generals. There have been, I think, 2 or 3 2-stars and about 2 or 3 1-stars altogether.
Son of a gun. Well, now, how long did it take you from that opportunity, I guess in 78 or 79, when you got the opportunity to become a general, to actually go from a brigadier general to a 4-star general?
9 years.
Is it so right close to the end? I mean, excuse me, when I say the end, you retired what year?
No, I'm sorry. It took... let's see.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
79,
right.
7 years.
Okay,
7 years.
Great, sure. So by 86, you had attained the 4-star general.
Yes.
Are there many? There are not too many 4-star generals. That's incredible. Of course, when we think about 5 stars, I guess the big.
The only time they had 5 stars, of course, in World War II, and there were just a few of those. A special rank that was created in World War II.
Right.
Presently. When I was serving, there were 14 4-stars. The number's been reduced now because the size of the force has come down. I think there are probably about 10.
That is fascinating, General Reed. Well, I got to admit, no one, when they sent a little bio and you said 4-star general, or you about yourself, which is great. Obviously, a very humble person, and that's a great testament to the success of the Myrtle Beach Air Base Redevelopment Authority. A lot's happened out there. What year did the air base close down?
Closed down in March of 1993.
Okay.
And there was some discussion about where the management of the redevelopment should lie. County argued it should be with the county. The city argued it should be with the city. Since the property, other than the air base itself, the runway, was within the city took the lead and created a group. Mayor Grissom at that time took the lead in establishing this, but the county did not fully accept that. And so because of the controversy there, the Air Force said, we need a governmental body that we can work with.
Right.
And the state stepped in and created the Redevelopment Authority, which was an outstanding move because it established a law that created us, established what the mission was, and gave us direction. And so that law really not only established us, but it helped protect us from outside influences because we had to follow the law.
Right, right.
So some interest that was pulling us in some other direction, we could say, no, that's not according to the law. So that was very, very helpful, that law.
Your chairman, Harold Stowe, talked a little bit about this last Thursday, but for viewers who weren't tuned in last Thursday, this is not something, or is it something that's indicative in most states, this opportunity to set up a redevelopment authority by the state?
It's an opportunity that exists where they have closed bases, and in most cases it's been done at the local level. A few cases have been done at the state level, but mostly at the local level. Here, because we had division of responsibilities between the city and the county, it worked best to have the state step in, create an authority, and give it the force of law.
Right, right.
So,
was it your 4-year tenure here as wing commander that gave you the bug that Myrtle Beach would be the place, or are you originally from the area?
No, we liked Myrtle Beach when we lived here. We have some family here. I have a daughter and granddaughters that live here at Myrtle Beach.
Great.
And I also have a son that lives in Columbia.
Oh, good. So the Palmetto State became
yes.
home. Are you all originally from this state?
No, I'm originally from Kentucky.
Aha, yeah.
My wife is from Wisconsin, so. But because we were here before, we liked it, we had family here, we decided this would be a good place to come back and retire.
That's wonderful. Of course, serving in the Air Force. Giovanni, what year did you join the Air Force?
52, really. Went through a year of training and commissioned in 53.
Growing up, had you always thought you'd want to serve in the armed forces?
Yes, I've always had a love of flying. I wanted to fly, I wanted to be a pilot, and so getting into the Air Force gave me that opportunity.
Right,
so,
right. Any special memories of flying during your service? So it was, let's see, it was about 45 years in the Air Force.
35.
35
years.
Excuse me, that's right, 80, that's right.
No, I flew fighters most of my career, and one of my first fighter assignments after I became a pilot was to go with a new squadron to Alaska, because in those days, this was 1953, 54, there was concern about defending Alaska because it was kind of a bare open space, and the threat from the Soviet Union was developing, and so we deployed there as a unit. That was a great opportunity because we were all new, all young, all at the beginning of the jet age in fighter aircraft. And so that was a great experience. The other would probably be my experience in Vietnam, flying combat in Vietnam in the F-4 aircraft. And so
probably vivid memories, even in both, whether in your earliest days or even after 15 years later or so, when you were even much more advanced as a pilot, and but surely vivid memories, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Of course, when you think back, we think back to '93 as the base was closing, so it was soon thereafter, within a year or so, that the Redevelopment Authority was formed.
Yes, it was formed not very long afterwards because the Air Force needed an entity that they could work with without any controversy, and so that's how we got created. And it has worked extremely well. We have a superb membership. And of course, Harold Stowe has provided us with, I think, outstanding leadership.
Oh yeah.
He's very modest in his approach, but he's been absolutely superb.
Has the Air Force maintained a presence even during the entire closure?
Yes. There is an office in Washington that the Air Force created to deal with the closures at the various bases it had, and so that office stays in touch with us here. And gives us guidance and direction and helps us in, like, we buy property from them. They make sure the deed is done properly. We purchase property from them. They act as the Air Force agent in selling that property.
Sure.
And Some of the property we had to deal with the Department of Interior. For example, if you were the Cathedral Bible College wanted property, that was handled by the Department of Interior. The Horry Georgetown Technical College needed property, that's handled by the Department of Education. That is, we worked with them to get the property passed over to the Horry Georgetown folks. So those kinds of interfaces have gone on throughout the tenure of the Redevelopment Authority.
Were you all ever asked, or did those departments, the Department of Interior, Education, was there an instance where it was entirely a public benefit conveyance, or were there ever sales that were made? For instance, the Cathedral Bible Academy, I saw that as an early recipient in reviewing some of the notes about your position, but...
they purchased their facilities. And we were not involved in that sale. In fact, we preferred to step back from it and not get involved and let the Department of Interior handle it. And so that's the way that happened. We supported and encouraged giving property to Horry Georgetown Technical College.
Yeah, sure.
And the Department of Education was very helpful in seeing that happened and got done. The other thing was working with FAA on establishing the boundaries for the airport portion of the base. We set aside in our work about 1,400 acres, I believe it was, for the airport.
Right.
And that got deeded to the airport as their portion of the base. They had originally wanted more, but after much discussion, the boundaries were established, and everybody began to work from that point on, the airport with this portion, and then we had the rest of the base for redevelopment. That's been a very, very successful arrangement.
Now, did the state, in creating the law that would set up the Redevelopment Authority, provide funds? Did they set up a slush fund of a sort to essentially enable you all to do redevelopment?
No, the law did not set up any means of financing us, and that was one of the things that we desperately needed when we started out.
Yeah, sure.
Harold Stowe touched on the fact that we were able to use the base housing, as a means to acquire funds. I want to also commend Senator Luke Rankin, because when the state authorized beer and wine sales on Sunday by restaurants, those taxes he put into the law could come to us, that portion dealing with Horry County. And that gave us a steady stream of income in the beginning, because we needed money to pay for staff, we needed money to get infrastructure done, and using the base housing, using what Senator Rankin got set up for us, and then the Air Force allowed us to lease property and collect the rent. So we were able to have rental income along with that, and so eventually we were able to acquire a fairly substantial pool of money.
Yes.
One of our first major projects was stormwater management. There was no system for stormwater management.
Is that right? But there had been some in place during the Air Force.
Not really, no.
Is that right?
Because you have to remember the base was built in the early 50s, and stormwater management at that time was not part of the environmental process.
Something you were not concerned about 75 to 79.
That's correct.
Right.
So we built a stormwater management system to handle the whole base, and so it resulted in not only accomplishing an environmentally sound project, but resulted in some very nice lakes, as you well know.
Oh yeah, magnificent. Sure, sure.
And the other thing that we did to enhance things in the local area was having property set aside to the city for parks and recreation.
Oh yes.
All of the recreational facilities we felt should go to the city, and they did. The ball fields, the gymnasium, the recreation center as an example.
Yes.
All of that got transferred to the city at no cost, because our view was that this benefits the whole community, having those facilities operated by the city, and it would ensure that they would be maintained properly and enhanced over the years. And in fact, the gymnasium, we just gave the city, I think it was about $2 million for rehabilitation of
the Crabtree Gym.
Crabtree Gym. The city is putting money into that project, and Mayor Rhodes was successful in getting some of the businesses to throw money into that project. So
yes,
it'll be about a $5 or $6 million project that's going to result in a first-class gymnasium.
there's another great base recreation center there that has
Yes.
really been upfitted.
Yes, we helped finance that base recreation center and turned it into a first-class facility.
I'm almost sorry, even though, of course, it's thrilling to be here at Santee Cooper, I'm almost sorry that we're not filming on the air base today. But, of course, we don't have that nice Air Base Redevelopment Authority office that you all would have your meetings in, either quarterly or monthly. How often were the meetings?
We initially used to meet weekly because of the amount of business we had to do. Those then went to sort of bi-weekly, then monthly, and now we meet only at the call of the chairman when some issue comes up.
Right.
And there are very few issues left. The property's been sold. There are a few contracts to be finished up. And
yes.
some monies to be paid for those.
Sure. And some of those holdups, as I think Harold talked about last week, Harold Stowe last week, are some environmental issues, oftentimes some slight environmental issues.
Under the base closure law, the Air Force has to return to the community an environmentally safe, sound, pure base, if you will.
Right.
And there were 2 or 3 areas that were polluted. Not bad, but it requires a length of time to remediate, what the Air Force calls remediating the pollution. And so until that's all done and the Air Force decides they're free and clear of pollution, then we can get the property. But we do have buyers for those.
Good, yes.
Once they're
Right.
once they're clean.
Has there not been a local Air Force base or Air Force representative? Is it Dick Souza? Is he
Dick
still here?
Souza,
Sure, that you all have
was-
interfaced with?
Yes, he was the last Air Force representative here overseeing the environmental work.
Okay.
After that work got underway and was a matter of just letting it finish out, he retired, and the Air Force office in Washington is doing the wrap-up on that. So.
Right. Well, we think about all the folks, and of course for myself, having leased and then purchased a facility, the former air base or training facility, the Air Flight Simulator, Building 368, and to think about all the tremendous folks that you had in the office there, whether Sandra or Bill or Betty Ballou, of course, who's still there, and Fred Glover and Julie Dussault, the great folks that you all interfaced with on a regular basis, along with Buddy Stiers, the executive director, who's been with us a number of times. You really had a great crew there on site.
We had a superb staff, and they stayed with us. And that was important, having the continuity and the stability of the staff.
Right.
And, that helped us get the job done much better. Must give credit also to the city planning staff. The city planning staff worked closely with us to devise a development plan that would result in a town center. They stayed focused. We stayed focused on that, despite being pulled in various directions.
Right.
And it's now paying off.
Oh, yeah, very definitely. Harold talked about Jack Walker last week,
Jack,
who would he have ever imagined 15 years ago that a Dan McCaffrey would come on the scene, albeit somebody like that was his ultimate dream?
Yes, because we hired a company in Atlanta to market us to try to attract that kind of development. They weren't very successful. I must give credit to Gary Roberts of Shakora.
Yes.
For his efforts in finding a developer such as McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
That could come in and do what we wanted done and what the city wanted done. And so my hat's off to Gary.
A big kudos to Gary. And, of course, I guess, was Gary involved also in helping whether Santee Cooper or some of the others divest of those properties? Or
Yes, he was. He was very, I think he was probably the lead real estate broker in that process, too. So
I'd like to be in on that commission. No, I'm kidding. He worked very hard,
Yes, he
obviously,
did.
to find groups like Leucadia or McCaffrey to come in and make that happen. Is very exciting.
Yes, he deserves a lot of credit.
You know, go ahead, please.
I was going to say one other project that I'm proud of that I'm involved in. The city planners asked us to, if we could come up with a way to preserve the history of the base.
Yes.
And Jack Walker took the lead, and one of his planners, Diane Moscow McKenzie,
Of course.
is the project officer. And they asked me if I would form a little committee. So I have a committee of about 5 individuals working with me. And what we've done, we've identified the key history of the base starting from 1941, when Mayor Harrelson was mayor. He was instrumental in getting the property set aside for a base and carrying that history all the way through to the present. How we're going to present the history of the base is through a series of signs. And I think we have 160 signs that commemorate the history and commemorate the individuals who were part of that history throughout the base's tenure. So that'll be a very interesting project, and people can walk throughout the base.
Oh, great.
And find out the history of the base, what happened here, who was involved. Streets will be named after people who have contributed to the base in one way or the other.
Yes, yes. And of course, a lot of those streets have already been named. I'm so glad you mentioned that. We've only got 3 or 4 minutes. Time has been flying. But as you think about some of those names, and I hate to say it, I want to say there's a Reed Boulevard or a Reed Street.
I think there is a Reed Street, of which I had nothing to do with.
Of course, sure.
But there is
Faro and Eugene Shine.
Shine Avenue. Shine was, of course, a combat casualty. Faro was from World War II. He flew in the hump in World War II. Very dangerous mission.
How about Crabtree, the gym? Was that?
Yes, Crabtree was a civilian employee, civil service employee at the base. Right. He ran the base recreation program. Long time individual, long time head of that. And he died one day at his desk from a heart attack.
Is that right?
Yes. And to honor him, the gym was named after him.
That's wonderful. Any other names that really strike out in the last couple of minutes that you think about?
Gabreski was the first, one of the first wing commanders.
Right.
And of course, he's an ace in World War II, ace in the Korean War, and he has a street, of course, named after him.
Right.
And as we name each street, we build a sign with a picture of the individual, and we tell the individual and what his significance is to the base.
Absolutely.
We found in our research ex-astronauts had served at the base. John Rosa, who is president of Citadel, was a captain in one of the squadrons when I was wing commander here, and he went on to become a 3-star general and now is president of Citadel. So those kinds of people we will honor with street names and with signs and have them placed strategically throughout the base.
That is fantastic. And we think about Faro Parkway and the excitement as folks join it there at Ocean Boulevard, the former front gate, and then the terminus there, which I guess is the beginning for a lot of folks there at the former back gate. A magnificent 4-lane, no lights yet, but I suspect whether it's Shine, as you think about the Myrtle Beach Police Training Facility. Tommy Chestnut, who was with us last week, said it's starting to get a little crowded there with Coastal Carolina Association Realtors and Tofino's itself, whether Shine or others.
And don't forget also the first-class fire station that was built there, which we helped finance to give fire protection to that whole area out there.
It is a magnificent facility. I think we could spend 20 minutes just naming some of the great businesses that have shown up out there. And, of course, y'all's ultimate goal was to replace the jobs lost.
That's correct, yes. And we will far exceed the number of jobs that were lost when the base closed, when all of the construction gets done and completed. And we're very pleased with McCaffrey. That's the first-class operation, and will result, I think, in the place in Myrtle Beach once it's completed.
Very definitely. As you look back on the last 13 years and your involvement since joining as a founding member, what's been the most exciting aspect for you, General Reed?
Probably the most exciting one was finally getting a development plan approved and then finding a company that could take that plan and make it a reality. And once we achieved that, that to us, to me, and I think to most of the board members, was really an outstanding day.
Absolutely.
And so we have to, I think, regard that as the principal act of the authority. I wanted to say a word, too, about the base housing. We commented earlier about that. And give credit to David Douglas for what he did there in bringing those houses up to standard and now converting them into condos.
Absolutely. He and Woody and the whole crew, all the folks involved. Thank you again, General Reed. I'm sorry we've run out of time. There's so many more things. We'll have to get you back. I hope we can get you back another time.
Well, I enjoyed it very much.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with General Bob Reed coming up next. Did you think you'd wake up this morning with a 4-star general? I sure didn't. Think about the excitement there 32 years ago when Bob Reed was arriving at what's now the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base as a colonel 32 years ago, and the excitement just 12 years after that when he left the Air Force. And to think there were a little more than a dozen 4-star generals at that time, now a little less than a dozen. The excitement of someone who's been involved, but to see the Air Base back in '75 and now to see it 32 years later, the excitement for so many. When I arrived in Myrtle Beach, we were hearing about Michael Jackson and the Isle of America. That's all I was hearing about the Air Base. Thank the Lord that didn't come to pass, because the excitement to see now Faro Parkway rolling through and all the people coming out and celebrating names like Jack Walker and Buddy Stiers and Bob Reed and Gabreski and even Grissom and Carol Campbell, all the names, Harold Stowe, that have really made a difference and continue to make a difference every day out on the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base.